morning. Welcome to our daily vlog about unsung heroes of the Bible. If you've been following along with us, you know that I rotate through mugs every day, and today, I don't know if you can read on there, it says Thailand. It's very beautiful, got an elephant handle on it. Had the opportunity of doing some mission work in those Asian areas of Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, and so I pray for those people when those mugs come up. Well, we've talked about unsung heroes of this group of people in different ways. I just want to hit it one more time about the Levites and their responsibility. They don't get a lot of attention in the Exodus story. You know, Moses, Aaron, all those guys get a lot of attention, Joshua. But today I want to look at unsung heroes of those Levites who had the responsibility of guarding the tabernacle, taking care of the worship place for the people of Israel during the Exodus. We know about the priests that performed sacrifices. We talked about that. But there was another group among the Levites who played a vital role in protecting the sacred space where God's presence dwelled. They had this sacred task of guarding God's presence, as it were. Let's think about it that way, not just the tabernacle, but guarding God's presence. In Numbers chapter 1, verses 50 through 53, when the Israelites were camped at the foot of Mount Sinai, God gave specific instructions to the organization of the camp, including the care and protection of the tabernacle, which would be that sacred dwelling place of God. The Levites were designated as the ones who would guard the tabernacle. They were not to be involved in other priestly duties of sacrifice. They were to keep watch over the sacred items and to ensure that no one unauthorized came near the tabernacle. The Levites' role was to protect the sanctity of God's presence and make sure that the camp remained in the appropriate order for that. I want to say, we don't have a tabernacle, we understand that the church today is the people, not the building. But we still have this need to protect the sanctity of God's presence in our lives, guarding our hearts and our minds against anything that might defile or distract us from God's holiness. That's still a task, and it's related to what these Levites were doing, and they were preparing a way to teach us about that. There are consequences to disobedience, you see. In Numbers 3, verses 5 through 10, the Lord commanded Moses to appoint the Levites specifically for this task of guarding the tabernacle. They were to serve as protectors, and anyone who came too close to the tabernacle without proper authority would face dire consequences, even death, as we know Aaron's two sons. The Levites took this responsibility very seriously, and their job was to ensure that the presence of God remained pure and untouched by unclean things. They were tasked with keeping the camp orderly and maintaining the holiness of the tabernacle. So in this role that these Levites took, they're unsung heroes to defend the holiness of God and His tabernacle. Well, that reminds us today that holiness requires vigilance. In our own lives, we're called to guard the things of God because we are His temple now. We are to ensure that we treat God with reverence and respect. Now, these Levites, that was not an easy task they had. There were physical demands upon them in their job. In Numbers 3, 25 through 37, we find that the Levites were responsible for the maintenance of the tabernacle itself. They transported it, they cared for it, they protected it, they took care of it all through that wilderness. That was a hard job. The Levites guarded the tabernacle. They had to carry all the furnishings, including the Ark of the Covenant and the altar, and they had to do it in just the right way. No easy task. Attention to detail was very important. they did it without any fanfare or recognition. They just did their jobs. Yet their work was very crucial to God's presence among the people. So their job was tireless. As the Israelites traveled through the wilderness, the Levites carried that tabernacle from one location to another, keeping it protected, keeping it sanctified, keeping it the way God had commanded. There's a lesson in that. Faithfulness is not always in being seen. Sometimes it's about doing the behind the scenes things that protect and honor God and keep his place and keep his people holy. So the Levites had a role in the community. In Numbers 1, 50 through 53, they weren't just guardians of the tabernacle. They were also an example to the rest of the community. They were spiritual watchmen who reminded Israel of the holiness of God and the importance of reverence. Maybe we could have a little bit more of that in our day and age too. The presence of the tabernacle served as a constant reminder to the people that God was in their midst, and they had to approach him with the utmost respect and fear, that awe before God. By guarding the tabernacle, the Levites were keeping the whole community accountable to God's standards. Now, that's not over with today. We're called to be watchmen in our community as leaders in the church, guarding the things of God and helping to keep each other accountable before God. So, though the Levites who guarded the tabernacle are often overlooked, their role was integral to the spiritual life of Israel. Their faithfulness ensured that God's presence was there and it was pure and undefiled. And they were part of a greater mission that pointed to the holiness of God. They were often forgotten in the grand narrative, unsung heroes, as it were. But without them, the tabernacle would not have been protected. The Levites stood in the gap. They ensured that the people of Israel could worship without fear the holiness of God in a very profound way. Even if our work for God goes unnoticed by others, it's always valued by Him. And but this work of keeping the place of God holy, and I'm not talking about a church sanctuary. I'm talking about your soul and your duty to keep the presence of God holy and without blemish. God bless you. Have a good day.